Hey guys, tonight we're shrinking way down. Down to a size you can't even really comprehend and floating through the air as a speck. Yep, tonight we're becoming a dust particle. You're drifting through golden sunbeams, bouncing off bits of skin and cat hair, and honestly, it's the most chaotic nap of your life. You'll squeeze under doorways, ride a cat like a royal steed, and even almost get eaten by a vacuum cleaner. Oh, and let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. Not in one piece anyway. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and what time it is for you. I love seeing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You come into existence with a twitch of heat and a pop of pressure. One moment, nothing. The next, you're here, suspended in midair, barely aware of yourself, but real. You don't remember being anything before this moment, but technically, you've always existed. You're made of bits of dead skin cells, wool fibers, pollen, cosmic particles from space, and just a whisper of ash. A patchwork soul stitched together in the tiniest thunderclap of a sneeze and sunlight. A sunbeam cuts through the window blinds like a sword made of gold, and you drift in it lazily, basking in its warmth. It's morning, the air is cool, and you're alive. Kind of. If sentience can be granted to something smaller than a grain of salt, you have it. You're the smallest hitchhiker on the wild ride that is planet Earth. You tumble gently in the warm air, spiraling like a feather caught in a breeze. Below you, the vast topography of a suburban home. Couch mountains, rug valleys, hardwood plains. Each shift in the airflow sends you bouncing, zigzagging, careening off a lamp, and doing slow-motion somersaults across the living room. There's a coffee mug down below you, still steaming. The scent of roasted beans curls upward, wrapping you like a warm coat for a split second. And then, turbulence. A human sighs. It's as if a god exhaled. You're hurled halfway across the room, passing dangerously close to a flickering candle, molten wax and soot, practically your siblings. You settle momentarily on the edge of a bookshelf, thick with forgotten clutter, coated in other dust relatives long since surrendered to stillness. A retired fly carcass lies here. Some lint, a crumpled Lego pirate flag. You all commune in silence, too light for speech, but somehow together in stillness. Until movement.
Below the mother, flannel robe, socks that drag slightly behind her, hair tied up in what can only be described as a sleep-induced haystack. She yawns, stretches, and begins her morning migration through the house. With each footstep, the floorboards sigh. The vibrations tremble through the wood, shaking your perch. One misplaced draft, and you're off again. You glide downward in a peaceful, swirling descent. Light filters through you. You are briefly beautiful. If someone looked just right at the right time, they might think you are a glittering spirit of dust, like something Disney tried to copyright. You land with a gentle plop on the edge of the coffee table. Around you, the artifacts of humanity. TV remotes crusted with snack fingerprints, a half-solved Rubik's Cube, a forgotten banana peel aging dramatically. But you don't get long to reflect. The toddler has spotted you. Wide eyes, sticky hands, a small scream of delight. A chubby finger jabs in your direction, and suddenly you're airborne again. This time, intentionally, blasted off the table like a dandelion seed caught in a hurricane of joy. You cartwheel midair, flung wildly toward the ceiling, then dip low and bank left, finding yourself hovering above a heating vent. This, you soon realize, is a launch pad. The furnace kicks on. You are whooshed upward, caught in a current of hot air and cat fur. It's glorious, like skydiving on a trampoline made of electric static. You think you can hear other particles laughing, or maybe that's just the ductwork groaning. By the way, did you know dust is ancient? Some of your cosmic cousins formed when the Earth was barely cooled from its fiery birth. tiny meteorites, volcanic glass, old paint flakes from the 1800s, and even carbon molecules from distant exploded stars. Historians still argue whether ancient mummies contain trace dust from volcanic eruptions that changed climate patterns around the globe. All you know is you feel very fancy now. Then a rogue air current slams you straight into a lampshade. You stick for a moment, dizzy and embarrassed. A millimeter-long smear of static holds you in place while light radiates behind you like you're some holy relic. But it doesn't last. Nothing does. Another draft sends you downward, and you plunge again into open space, right toward a rumbling black abyss. The vacuum. It's awake. And it's hungry. You see it in the hallway, driven by the same flannel-robed mother who unknowingly gave you flight minutes earlier. She's muttering to herself. Coffee in one hand, vacuum in the other, it howls like a banshee. The bristles claw at the carpet, and you are in its path. Every instinct you never knew you had screams, "Flee!" You skid across the tile, tumble over a loose Cheerio, bounce off a clump of cat hair like a trampoline. The roar is louder now, a tidal wave of suction. It's not just a cleaning device, it's a particle devourer, a black hole on wheels. Just as you're being pulled toward its gaping mouth, you snag a miracle. A single thread from a wool sock catches you, like a bungee cord snapping tight. You cling to it desperately, shivering in the gale, your entire being straining to hold on. And then, silence. The vacuum clicks off. The mother walks away. You survived, but only just. You lie there heaving silently on the edge of the thread, feeling like you aged a century in 60 seconds. Around you, other dust particles start to settle, shaken but amused. One whispers through the air, "First time?" You don't respond. You're too busy replaying the chaos. The birth, the breath, the sunlight, the cat hair, and now, somehow, you're still here. A single ray of light warms your back, and the day is just beginning.
You're still trembling slightly, if a speck of dust can tremble. That near-death vacuum experience is going to live in your memory forever. Not that your memory is all that long, to be fair. A few minutes at most, maybe an hour if you're lucky. You exist in the present, really, just like those mindfulness books say. Not by choice, though. You're just not big enough to remember anything else. But now, you've anchored yourself securely to the wool thread you clung to in the nick of time. You rest there for a moment. The thread is soft, slightly fuzzy, smelling vaguely of detergent and despair. A worn sock, abandoned under the couch for what looks like months? You don't get to ask questions. You're a dust mote. You get what you get. Then, motion. The sock shifts. You bounce, startled, as it suddenly lifts into the air. Shadows flood over you, and for the briefest of seconds, you think the vacuum has returned to finish what it started. But no, it's something worse. The cat. Huge green eyes blink in the darkness. You stare into them like a sailor spotting sea monsters on the horizon. She sniffs the sock. Snuffle, snuffle, and then, without warning, bats it under the couch with one casually vicious paw. And you go with it. The sock tumbles in slow motion, and you're pressed into it, flattened like a pancake made of wool and regret. When it stops, you're in a new land entirely. Underworld. Beneath the couch. You take a moment to absorb your surroundings. It's a miniature landscape of ancient Legos, rogue popcorn kernels, dried Play-Doh fossils, 2 marbles, and what appears to be a petrified green bean. This is the place where lost things go to die. And in the middle of it all, the cat again. She slinks in beside you, tail twitching, eyes glowing in the dim light. She flops onto her side, purrs deep and loud, and stretches like a sleepy goddess. Her fur brushes over you, and you're taken. Literally. Her tail picks you up like a lint roller on a mission. You're clinging to it now, embedded in a swirl of ginger fuzz, riding the feline express. You don't have a ticket. You barely have a grip. But the ride has started, and there's no getting off. The cat, let's call her Lady Muse, struts out from under the couch like she owns the place. Which, to be fair, she does. Her paws pad silently across the hardwood, tail raised high like a banner, and you're just along for the ride. She leaps onto the windowsill in a single bound, and you're carried with her, rising into the sun again. For a moment, the light catches you just right, and you sparkle like a living jewel nestled in her fur. She notices something, twitches her tail, and you're flung again, into the curtain. Now you dangle from a curtain thread, gently swaying, basking in a warm beam of light that turns you golden. You could stay here forever. But you won't. The child returns. Yes, the toddler, the one who weaponized your previous flight. He waddles into the room, eyes alight with mischief, fists full of applesauce. He sees the cat. The cat sees him. It's mutual chaos. Lady Muse bolts. In her wake, she knocks into the curtain. You fly loose again, spinning like a ballerina made of lint. This time, you land on the child's arm, sticky, warm, covered in dried banana. You try to pull away, but the static and the sheer force of toddler goo locks you in place. You're now part of a new world, the world of sticky fingers, dribbled cereal, and baby giggles that sound like they're plotting something. The toddler lifts his arm. You rise. He runs. You bounce. Each step he takes is a seismic event. Boom, boom, boom. Your tiny world lurches and sways. Your ride takes you past the toy box, past a suspiciously stained beanbag chair, and finally, blissfully, toward the laundry room. And now you understand something monumental. Laundry. The grand event. The gods of this house have gathered the garments. The worship of freshness is nigh. You are in sacred territory. The child's sleeve brushes against a pile of dirty clothes. You leap, freedom, and land on a sweatshirt that smells of gym socks and lost hope. The floor vibrates again. It's not the child this time, it's the mother, back with vengeance, carrying a basket brimming with socks, jeans, a fitted sheet that mocks human geometry, and 3 unmatched mittens.
She dumps the contents into the washer, humming an off-key tune. You cling desperately to a t-shirt sleeve, watching as your fabric world collapses in on itself like a dying star. The washer door opens. It's like staring into a dragon's mouth. And here's a fun fact to distract yourself. Dust is responsible for roughly 70% of the debris that collects in households. The rest? Skin, pollen, rogue glitter, and the occasional smidge of alien micromatter. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian tombs contained deliberately included dust as part of the embalming ritual, or if it was just really bad housekeeping. Not that it matters now. You tumble with the clothes into the washer. You expect death, but instead, you stick. Miraculously, gloriously, you adhere to a crumpled receipt tucked in a hoodie pocket. You stay there, curled and safe, while the mother pours in detergent and closes the lid. Then, darkness. Water. Noise. You're tossed and spun, thrashed in a cyclone of lavender-scented chaos. But the paper holds, and you're surviving. Barely. The washer is relentless. The fabric smacks you from every side, and somewhere in the distance, you think you can hear socks crying out for help. The wash cycle ends. You emerge damp, clinging to the receipt like it's your life raft on the Titanic. Then, another journey, the transfer to the dryer. A massive hand, relative to your size, scoops the clothes and tosses them into the drum. You go with them, silently pleading with physics to grant you mercy. And wouldn't you know it, mercy comes in the form of static cling. The receipt sticks to a sweater. You stick to the receipt. The dryer begins its slow, rhythmic spin, and the heat rises. It's oddly calming. You rotate gently in the dark warmth, like a tiny astronaut in training. There's even a rhythmic thump, thump, thump that could be mistaken for a heartbeat. Yours? The dryer's? No one knows. After what feels like a lifetime, but is probably 20 minutes, you are pulled from the machine, still intact, still attached. The clothes are folded, sort of, stacked badly, and carried into a new room. And here, in the quiet of a tidy bedroom, you float gently to rest atop a pillow. Clean air, soft cotton, light filtering through gauzy curtains. You are safe for now, but you know better than to get comfortable. The cat is nearby.
The pillow feels like heaven. If heaven were made of microfiber and smelled faintly of dryer sheets and forgotten dreams. You're warm, dry, and delicately perched right on the edge of the seam, almost too perfect to be real. You've made it through the ancient rite of laundry and lived to tell the tale, which, for a dust particle, is like surviving a tornado inside a volcano while riding a sock. But peace is never permanent. A shadow falls across the bed. You brace instinctively, vibrating with the paranoia only a tiny speck can know. From behind the curtain, there she is, Lady Muse. Her ears twitch. She watches you. She knows. You freeze, hoping you'll blend in. Maybe she'll think you're just a tuft of fluff or one of the rogue feathers from the throw pillow massacre of last Tuesday. But no. Her gaze sharpens. Her tail flicks once, twice, and you know what's coming. She leaps, paw outstretched like a hunter from the dawn of time. Her toe beans press into the comforter as she pounces, landing squarely where you rest. You are flung, once again, this time upward, into a thermal updraft from the ceiling fan. Yes, you're airborne. Again. Let's pause here. Did you know that dust particles like you are often lifted by microscopic changes in air pressure? Some scientists even call it household weather. It's why no matter how much someone vacuums, you always come back. Always. It's poetic, really. Or vengeful. You spin in a lazy spiral like a feather trapped in a snow globe. Below, the bed shrinks. The cat twitches in mild confusion, and the pillow awaits your possible return. But you don't go back. Instead, the current pulls you toward the hallway. There's a soft whoosh as you drift through the doorway, past a hanging robe that tries to snag you, past a photo of the family vacation in 2006, where someone's arm is awkwardly cropped out, and toward the upstairs landing. You glide past the railing. Below, the living room sprawls in silence. You hover, caught between upstairs and down, a moment suspended in stillness. Then, the HVAC clicks on. And that's all it takes. You're sucked downward through invisible turbulence, flipping end over end like an Olympic gymnast with no bones and too much enthusiasm. You brush against the chandelier, an antique monstrosity cleaned only during presidential elections, and land on the back of the living room couch. This couch is old, really old, older than the teenager who avoids it. You can smell the echoes of decades, popcorn, spilled soda, cologne, dust mites past and present. It's less furniture, more fossil. You nestle in the fabric like a tired traveler in a foreign land. Around you, other dust motes cling, a strange little community of forgotten particles. Some of them look older, wiser. One even resembles a lint version of Abraham Lincoln, complete with a tiny top hat made of cat fur. You'd ask questions, but no one talks down here. It's a sacred place. Still, warm, forgotten. You could grow old here. You could retire. But destiny calls. The teenager enters. Ah, yes. The one with the earbuds and the tragic mustache.
He slumps onto the couch, sending seismic waves through the cushions. You're tossed again, tumbling into the air with a sigh. Honestly, it's exhausting being this light. You land on the teen's hoodie. He doesn't notice. He's too busy scrolling, thumbs flying across the screen like they're trying to escape. You ride along as he lounges, then gets up, then slumps again, this time in a beanbag that gives way like it's made of apathy and stale Doritos. Then it happens. He sneezes. Loud, sudden, cataclysmic. You are expelled like a rocket ship, propelled upward by a gust of air engineered entirely by nasal fury. You don't even get a moment to appreciate the physics involved because, wham, you hit the ceiling and stick. Yep, that's a thing. Some particles get stuck in the weird texture of popcorn ceilings, others in spider webs. You, apparently, are now part of the constellation of grime above the family sofa. Congrats! From up here, you see everything. The mother arguing with the robot vacuum again. The toddler trying to wear 2 socks on the same foot. Lady Muse stalking a spot of light on the wall like it owes her money. You observe, you reflect, you let go. And just like that, gravity decides your time is up. You fall. Straight down, a slow, somersaulting descent until you land on
A newspaper. Not just any newspaper, one from 1998, purposed as packing paper under a potted plant. It smells like mildew in old headlines. But here's the kicker. Printed right on the visible page is a piece about the Y2K panic. You read it because why not? It says people were hoarding water, buying generators, and learning how to churn butter just in case. Historians still argue whether the whole thing was a real threat or just an expensive software oversight wrapped in apocalyptic hype. Either way, it didn't affect you. You weren't even born yet. Technically, you didn't exist as yourself back then. Maybe part of you did. A fragment of skin, a flake of lint, a fiber from a millennium sock. You lie there for a moment, letting that existential crisis pass. Then a breeze finds you. A window's cracked open, letting in the outside world. With it comes a swirl of pollen, a lost dandelion seed, and someone's cigarette smoke from the sidewalk. You catch the current and ride once more. Outward, upward, into the sunlight. Outside. It's your first time. The world is blinding, loud, vast. The wind is stronger, the smell's sharper. You are no longer bound by 4 walls. You float over a patch of grass. A snail blinks at you. You keep going. You drift into a dog's fur for a few seconds, then are shaken loose by a spirited shake, shake, shake. You pass a squirrel with serious business on its mind. You bounce off a bike tire. You soar over a lawn gnome, forever mid-wave. And just when you think you've seen it all, you rise higher, up toward the clouds. Don't get too excited. This doesn't last. Air currents are fickle. You hover near a laundry line where socks and bed sheets flap like surrender flags, and there, nestled in a crease of fabric, is your old friend. A receipt. The same one somehow. Or maybe just another one from the same grocery store. Doesn't matter. It catches you, welcomes you, holds you tight. You are safe again. For now. But if there's anything you've learned today, it's that dust never settles for long.
You lie nestled in the crevice of that weather-worn receipt, clinging to it like a traveler who's seen too much of the world in too little time. The wind has gentled for now, and you're swaying ever so slightly on the corner of a faded bedsheet pinned to a backyard line. Around you, the sun spills across the cotton in waves of light, and for just a moment, you bask in the warmth like a tiny solar panel of forgotten fluff. But you don't stay basking for long. The laundry line trembles, once, then twice.
Someone's taking the laundry down. A hand reaches out, human, adult, with a band-aid on the thumb, and lifts the corner of the sheet. You and your grocery store shuttle are casually, obliviously shaken loose. You flutter downward, a whisper on the breeze. And this time, your landing is softer than you deserve. Grass. Fresh, green, full of life and caterpillars. The blades sway like dancers at a silent concert. You come to rest between two tall stalks, tucked into the underbrush like a secret. And from here, your world shrinks again. The view isn't grand, but it's teeming. Ants march in complex little trails, beetles huff along like armored tanks. Somewhere nearby, a fly buzzes like it's got somewhere very important to be. And you watch. You wait. You exist. Then the sprinklers come on. Click. Shh. That's the sound of your piece being shattered into a million moist pieces. A jet of water slams the grass nearby, sending droplets ricocheting like rubber bullets. One smacks you mid-particle, and suddenly you're airborne, flipping end over end in a splashy ballet of chaos. You don't even get the dignity of a dramatic scream. You're a speck. You don't get those. You land on wet pavement, next to a dandelion that looks as dazed as you feel. You're soaked, slightly flattened, and definitely annoyed. The sun glints off a puddle nearby, and you see your reflection, if dust had reflections. You don't recognize yourself anymore. From here, things slow. The wind is too damp to carry you. The sun starts drying the sidewalk one steamy patch at a time. You wait it out, clinging to the cement with all the dignity you can muster. At least no one stepped on you yet. But you don't stay forgotten. The breeze stirs again. It finds you, gently, like a friend offering a hand. You lift. Not fast, not even impressively, but up you go. Past the dandelion, past the sprinkler head now spitting in a new direction, past a spider weaving a web between two blades of grass. You lift higher, slow and steady, like you've learned something about patience. And maybe you have. You cross the edge of the yard and into the sidewalk airspace, where the scent of garbage bins and hot concrete fills your senses. This is city territory, bigger, louder, messier, but also full of opportunity. You cling briefly to the edge of someone's sneaker, then catch another breeze. Now you're drifting toward the open door of a laundromat. Ironic, isn't it?
You hesitate at the threshold. So many memories of being thrashed and spun, but you're pulled in, your fate sealed by a gust of air-conditioned betrayal. Inside, the air smells like detergent and quarters. You float through rows of machines, each one a chrome drum of bubbling activity. People move in slow, choreographed patterns, loading clothes, feeding machines, tapping phone screens. You hover near a basket full of socks, most of which appeared to have lost their lifelong partners. Tragic. One dryer door swings open. Hot air explodes outward, catching you like a rogue taxi. You ride it, up and away, landing gently on top of a folded towel. It's warm, it's fluffy, and it's headed somewhere. You ride in the basket. Out the door, into a car, through traffic that smells like exhaust and fast food. You stick with the towel as it's carried into an apartment, set down in a room full of posters and lava lamps. A college student. Their room is chaos and energy drinks and ramen packets. You're lifted again, this time by the swipe of a hand trying to grab the towel. You fall, naturally, onto the desk where you catch your breath on top of a receipt for textbooks that were never opened. It's quiet here. Until it's not. The desk fan roars to life. You don't even pretend to resist. You let go. You spin. You fly. This time you hit a shelf, half covered in comics, trinkets, and, yes, there it is, a medieval knight figurine. He holds you like treasure, and suddenly it's the perfect moment for a history break. Did you know that in medieval times, people believed dust and dirt were signs of divine humility? Too much cleanliness was considered vanity by some monks.
Historians still argue whether this belief contributed to hygiene-related issues during the period, or if it was just a minor footnote in a much more complex sanitary saga. You, my dusty friend, would have been revered in the 12th century, but today, you're just a nuisance. Still, there's something noble in being a survivor. You've been washed, blasted, flattened, sneezed on, and dropped into puddles. All you've traveled further in one afternoon than most humans do in a month, all without legs or plans. Now, though, you rest. The sun shifts, the fan slows, the world quiets. The college student naps in their beanbag, snoring softly. The lava lamp gurgles. And you, warrior of the wind, rest in the night's hand, silently enjoying the stillness. For now. Because dust never sleeps for long.
Sleep doesn't last long. At least, not for dust. Especially not in a college apartment where peace is a fragile and fleeting thing, like the last bit of hot water during shared showers or a clean mug in the sink. You lie nestled in the night's plastic palm thinking, if a speck can think, about the quiet hum of the lava lamp and the rise and fall of the student's breath. You almost begin to believe you've finally found a resting place. Almost. Then the phone alarm screams. The college student bolts upright, knocking their beanbag into the shelf. Your noble night topples. You and he part ways mid-fall, as if the world is saying, cute moment, but no. You bounce off the desk, drift for a second mid-air, and land in an open textbook, face down on a page about the Roman Empire. You're not impressed. The page trembles beneath you as the student grabs the book and flings it into a backpack. You're in the backpack now. Or rather, on top of the backpack's contents, which smell like gum wrappers, graphite, and unfulfilled potential. You jostle between granola crumbs and what might be a used tissue. The world rocks. They're walking. You, my poor friend, are in for a wild ride. The backpack swings with each step, a pendulum of poor posture. You slide around like a micro-marbled bowling ball in an earthquake. And then, a stop. A sudden unzip. A whoosh of light. You blink, figuratively, of course. You're in a lecture hall now. Huge, echoey, the kind of place where knowledge echoes off the walls but rarely sticks to anyone's brain. The student plops the book onto their desk, and you sail out like a freed prisoner, tumbling to the carpeted floor. You lie there for what feels like centuries. Legs and backpacks and boots pass you by. Someone drops a pen near you, doesn't notice, and picks up a different pen instead. Tragic. Then something glorious happens. A backpack zipper is down, and you get sucked in. Not the same one. A different student. New territory. You glide into the zippered pouch like a breeze slipping into a cathedral, and oh, the smell. Bubblegum and pine-scented hand sanitizer. You could get used to this. You're carried again. Out the hall, down a staircase, into a cafe where jazz plays from a Bluetooth speaker that's way too confident in its bass settings. And here's the thing about cafes. They're dusty. From the espresso machines to the faux rustic wood shelves, there's a whole civilization of your kind just hanging out. You land next to a tiny crumb of scone and 3 fellow particles who are lounging like retirees on vacation. It's practically a reunion. You hang out there for a while, vibing under a table leg, catching whispered snippets of conversation from undergrads debating whether Plato was just the ancient version of a group chat mod. A few tables over, someone's drawing a flowchart titled, "Should I Drop This Class?" You relate deeply. But the cafe closes, and with it, your current existence. The janitor comes through. The mop is cruel. The mop is unforgiving. The mop doesn't see you. It only feels you, and it wants you gone. With a single swipe, you're caught up in a damp whirl of debris and despair, dragged across the floor like a forgotten character in an epic. You're scooped, thrown in with the mop water,
And now you're floating. Yes, floating in a grayish bucket of used dreams and disinfectant. Around you, a paperclip, a receipt that gave up halfway through being useful, and something that might once have been part of a French fry. You drift, wondering how many times you've been wet today. Then the bucket is emptied. Outside, back alley, late night, one star visible through the light pollution. You land on asphalt, damped and disoriented. The breeze returns, always dramatic when it needs to be, and lifts you again. This time, you're not resisting. You're too tired to protest. You rise, over fences, past neon signs and dumpsters, higher than the pigeons sleeping on that ledge. You float into a third-floor apartment window, cracked just enough for a speck like you to slide through. You land on a dresser. And the room? It's different. Dim. Quiet. A record player hums something vintage. A cat sleeps in the corner, breathing softly, its tail twitching in a dream. And there, folded on the bed, is laundry. Clean. Warm. Precisely stacked. You're drawn to it like a moth to a no-judgment zone. You drift down and land gently between two towels. Folded. Silent. Purposeful. You pause there, not just because you're tired, but because this moment feels still. You're back where you began, in some abstract cosmic sense. From dust to detergent to dust again. And as you rest on that folded towel, you can't help but recall a bit of trivia from the classroom floor. A professor had once mentioned that ancient Egyptian servants were responsible for daily dusting in the tombs of the pharaohs, not for cleanliness, but to protect the divine energy believed to linger in sacred spaces. Historians still argue whether that was superstition or spiritual maintenance. But it doesn't matter now, because you're just dust. Watching. Waiting. Listening to the slow rhythm of someone turning off a lamp and whispering goodnight. Outside, the world continues without you. Inside, you fade into the fabric, hidden in plain sight. Until the next time someone shakes out a towel and you're summoned again. You wake before the human does. Not that you sleep exactly, not in the way living things do, but you drift into stillness, and then, without warning, find yourself aware again. The towel shifts beneath you, a soft snore from the bed. The cat, now awake, is watching the window like it's expecting a guest. And then, light. A sliver of morning sun slices through the blinds, illuminating every suspended mote in the air like 1,000 tiny astronauts caught in zero gravity. You're not alone here, you realize. There's an entire universe of you, your kind, dancing, floating, waiting for motion to stir them from their lazy orbit. You feel honored, like part of an elite, ancient guild. You roll slightly from the towel's edge and catch a gentle updraft from the vent above. It smells faintly of cinnamon and cat litter. You ride it upward, higher than the bookshelf, past a mobile made of old postcards. Each turn of air pushes you closer to the ceiling, where you hover like a thought that hasn't quite landed. Then, boom! A closet door slams open, the human is awake, and chaos has arrived in a hoodie. The bed unravels, the towel is swept up, and you,
Ever the stowaway, catch a ride on the hem of a pair of jeans being pulled hastily from the floor. Your ride is bumpy. You cling to a frayed belt loop like a lifeline. And then, the human runs their hand down the pants leg and flings you free. You go airborne again. Only this time, you land on a sock. A sock that's been missing its partner for at least 2 laundry cycles. You can feel the resentment in the fibers. You settle into the elastic like it's a beanbag and accept your fate. But then comes the twist. The human picks up the sock, stares at it, and makes a decision no one expects. Into the trash it goes. Sock, you, and a gum wrapper for company. Now you're in the trash can. Not the poetic kind, the under-the-desk kind. Smells like used paper and a banana peel that's lost the will to exist. You rest between a pencil shaving and a crumpled to-do list that includes email prof and fix printer? Neither of which, judging by context, has been accomplished. But you're not down here for long. Trash day. The can is emptied into a bag. The bag is tied, carried, tossed. And now you're in a bin, the big green city kind that lives on the curb and has seen things. Around you, takeout boxes, expired yogurt containers, 1/2 of a plastic hanger, and someone's broken phone case. It's loud here. Banging, rolling, dogs barking in the distance. Somewhere a crow laughs at something probably evil. The air is thick with scent and history. You'd cry if you could. And then, salvation, of a sort. The garbage truck.
It roars like a mechanical dragon, clamps the bin like prey, lifts it, dumps it, and you're falling again, into the belly of the beast. The compactor doesn't hit you, not directly. You land on a pizza flyer with just enough leftover grease to make you stick like a tragic postage stamp. Around you, plastic bottles protest in crunching harmony. A bag of old bread explodes like a gluten grenade. And here, in this chaos of urban discards, you settle once more. You wait and wonder. Did you ever think, back when you were part of a curtain or a shirt or a speck on a fingertip, that you'd make it this far? That you'd be buried with civilization's leftovers in the mechanized gut of a city that doesn't know your name? Then again, no one ever sees the dust. Not until it collects. Speaking of which, hours later, the truck empties at the landfill. The doors open. The ground shifts. You are dumped onto a mountain of everything. This place is quiet. Not in sound, oh, it's noisy, but in purpose, in finality. The wind kicks up now and then, lifting stray papers and torn plastic bags like urban ghosts. You, however, don't lift. Not yet. You cling to a cracked DVD case that once held a movie no one rents anymore. Time slows here. But even in a landfill, you don't stay forgotten for long. Birds descend, seagulls, crows, one particularly aggressive pigeon. They peck, shift, uncover, and one flapping wing sends a spiral of air your way. You rise, but only slightly. You bounce along the ground, dancing with candy wrappers and shredded receipts. You cling for a moment to a discarded baby sock. Then you are caught, finally, mercifully, by the edge of a worker's boot. He doesn't notice you. He walks to his pickup truck. You ride on the cuff of his jeans. And when he hops in, when the truck pulls away down the long, dusty access road, you are airborne again, flung by a slap of wind off the side mirror. You ride it out, higher this time, more confident. You glide like a champion paper airplane launched by fate. And where do you land? Of course, back on laundry. Not the same laundry. This one's draped across a fence near a small house on the edge of town. A pale bedsheet, smelling of sunlight and quiet lives.
You nestle into a fold. It's warm. Again. And suddenly, you remember a strange little detail from a documentary you passed by on a flat-screen TV once while sticking to someone's jacket. Medieval households used to beat laundry clean with wooden paddles beside rivers. The process was loud, wet, and deeply satisfying to onlookers with nothing better to do. Historians still argue whether this method was more efficient than modern washing or just more theatrical. But you wonder, was that dust ever like you? Did it cling? Did it fly? Probably not. They didn't have vents and leaf blowers. You doze. Not really, but something close. Until a bee lands nearby and buzzes so loudly that it vibrates the sheet. You fall, land in a flower bed, smack into a petal, and sneeze if sneezing were something Specs could do. And there you are, lying in a blossom, shaded from the heat, listening to the buzzing world go by. Not bad. Not bad at all. But you know it won't last, because nothing ever does when you're dust.
You're curled on a petal, shaped like a hammock dipped in sunlight. The flower trembles as bees navigate its pollen-heavy center, brushing you with their fuzzy limbs like you're a curiosity they don't quite understand. One of them bumps into you mid-flight, and for a split second, you spin off into the air like a leaf in a blender. But this time, you land softly, in the fur of a dog. Yes, a golden retriever. Massive by your standards. Towering, shaggy, and with eyes full of simple questions and unconventional joy. You nestle near the nape of its neck, where the fur forms a warm spiral. The dog barks at nothing, wags at everything, and begins the kind of gallop that only a creature with no rent to pay can pull off. You're airborne again, not by wind this time, but by inertia. The dog runs, tongue flapping, past a yard, through a screen door left ajar, and into a house that smells like toasted bread and crayon wax. You stick now to a child's drawing taped to the wall. It's a stick-figure family standing under a purple sun with a house shaped suspiciously like a slice of cake. You perch on the mother's triangle dress and wonder about your life choices. The child runs past, 6, maybe 7 years old, wearing a cape made from a pillowcase. He skids to a halt, grabs the paper off the wall, and tosses it into his backpack. You're going on a field trip! The classroom is chaos. 30 humans, all under 4 feet tall, packed into a room painted in primary colors. There's glitter on every surface, glue in places it absolutely shouldn't be. One kid is quietly eating paper in the corner. You understand the appeal. It's less stressful than the open world. As the drawing is pulled out for show and tell, you fall again. This time, you land inside a book. A battered, beloved copy of a history textbook with coffee stains and penciled doodles of knights fighting aliens. You settle between pages discussing the Black Death. And that's your historical moment of the day, the bubonic plague, caused by a bacterium carried by fleas on rats, wiped out nearly half of Europe's population in the 14th century. Cities emptied, trade collapsed, superstition bloomed like mold on bread. People even thought it might be caused by, yes, bad air or dust. Historians still argue whether poor sanitation or trade routes play the bigger role in its rapid spread. You think the rats had some serious networking skills. You bounce gently between paragraphs as the teacher flips pages. She sneezes. You fly. Across the room, into the folds of a curtain. There, clinging to fabric like a thrill-seeking barnacle, you ride out the afternoon while the children nap. Or pretend to. And just when it seems like you might settle into early retirement, the custodian enters. Mop, broom, dust rag. And that's when it happens. The curtain is tugged aside. You lift, caught in the swirling vacuum of motion and cleaning products, and land in a janitor's shirt pocket. You don't think he knows you're there, but he carries you like a secret. Out of the school, into a car with fuzzy dice on the mirror, down a side road through swaying trees. You nap against a mint wrapper. Until he gets home. His house smells like oil and onion and old vinyl records. He sets down a brown paper bag on the counter, groceries, and removes a roll of paper towels. As he tears a sheet, the air displaces you, and down you go, onto a countertop. You're now surrounded by breadcrumbs,
a rogue sunflower seed, and a magnet shaped like a hot dog that fell from the fridge sometime last week. This is your new crew. You named them instantly. Sunflower seed is Deborah, breadcrumb is Jeff. It's been 200 milliseconds and you're already deeply emotionally attached. But Deborah betrays you. A breeze from the open window kicks her sideways. She rolls into you, and you tumble off the counter, catching a ride on a soap bubble from a nearby sink. Now this is new.
You're hovering in a shimmering sphere, rainbow skin stretched thin around you. Through its warped surface, the world looks both magical and slightly anxious, like a kaleidoscope that just read the news. The bubble floats out the window. You see the yard again, the trees, the mailbox, and then pop. You land in a bird bath. You know what's coming next, because the pigeons have arrived. Not the elegant cooing ones from storybooks. These are the slightly damp, mildly paranoid ones. They dunk their heads, flutter their wings, startle at nothing. One of them flaps its wings aggressively, and like a startled acrobat, you're launched again onto a passing stroller. The baby doesn't see you, too busy throwing puffs of cereal into the street like offerings to the gods of chaos. You cling to the stroller's edge, bouncing with each sidewalk crack. The mother hums a tune. You recognize it. Twinkle, Twinkle. Classic. Old as dust. Literally. Did you know the melody has been used for centuries? Even Mozart wrote a set of variations on it. Historians still argue whether he composed it for a student, a patron's child, or just because he was bored and trying to keep his wig on straight. The stroller stops at a coffee shop. A barista with a lightning bolt tattoo on their wrist bends to pet the baby's foot. You ride that hand like a fairy into the coffee shop, where everything smells like ambition and oat milk. You stick briefly to the rim of a travel mug. Someone sips. You're in a mouth. Oh no. Oh yes. And then you're breathed out in a laugh. Someone told a joke about office politics. You escape. The exhale carries you out the door into the afternoon sun, where your silhouette dances for a moment like a speck of thought against the blue. And then you land on a newspaper. The headline reads, "City Debates Leaf Blower Ban." You smirk internally. Oh, leaf blowers, ancient enemies of all that floats freely. A squirrel skitters by and rustles the page. You tumble. And now you're back on laundry. Different laundry. Line-dried. Lavender-scented. The kind that makes you believe in second chances. And you wonder, how long will you rest here? 10 minutes? A decade? Another 100 years? Doesn't matter. You're dust. You go where the chaos takes you. And tonight, that chaos smells like fabric softener.
You're nestled into the soft folds of a linen shirt, the kind people buy when they want to feel like they live by the ocean, even if the closest they get to salt air is a margarita with too much lime. The breeze flutters the hem. You, as always, are just along for the ride. The shirt hangs lazily on a clothesline, swaying in the late-day sun like it's listening to yacht rock. You're not sure what time it is, but the shadows are long and someone nearby is burning toast. The line creaks. A gentle gust picks up. And just like that, you're airborne again. You spiral upward, past a pair of chattering sparrows mid-gossip, past a spider contemplating dinner, past a wind chime that has strong opinions about jazz. You rise higher, caught in the chimney draft of a nearby rooftop, and now you're in a vent. Hot air. Dry. Lint-scented. It's a dryer exhaust. You're officially back in the laundry narrative. You descend like a meteor into a hamper full of unmatched socks. One has a cartoon giraffe on it, the other smells faintly of mischief. You burrow in. There are worse places to land. A few minutes pass. Then the hamper is lifted. You're on the move again,
bobbing slightly with every step like a prize in a weird carnival game. The person carrying the hamper hums a song. You think it's staying alive. You feel oddly empowered. You're dumped, unceremoniously but gently, into a washing machine. Uh-oh. Water floods in. This isn't your first laundromat rodeo, but you were hoping to avoid another soak. You try to cling to a sock seam, but the water pulls you loose. Now you're swirling. Suds rise, shirts flop around you like octopuses in therapy. You do your best not to panic. Here's a historical tidbit to distract you. The first electric washing machine was invented in the early 1900s. It was called the Thor. And no, it did not come with a cape or lightning hammer, though it probably should have, given how many laundry rooms it flooded. Historians still argue whether mechanical laundry was first adopted for convenience or necessity. You'd argue trauma avoidance should be on the list. The machine spins. You black out. Not literally, but the water disorients you so fully that for a few moments you don't know which way is up, who you are, or whether you ever existed in the first place. It's like a philosophy major's first existential crisis. Then, the spin cycle ends. Silence. Stillness. A hand reaches in, retrieves damp clothes, fluffs them into a basket. You're clinging to a collar now, dripping and contemplative. The clothes are transferred to a dryer. You prepare for round 2. But wait. Something changes. They hesitate. They hold up a single sock and mutter, "Where's the other one?" You wonder if it's the giraffe sock. The answer, of course, is always the void. They toss the clothes into the dryer, and with them, you go. The drum spins, and so do you. Hot air blasts through. You tumble through warmth and static like a microwave popcorn kernel that forgot it had dreams. Did you know dryer sheets were invented in the 1960s? Yep. Prior to that, people just lived with the cling. Bold times. Historians still argue whether the invention of tumble drying revolutionized domestic work or merely shifted expectations. As someone currently ricocheting off a bath towel, you'd say it depends who you ask. The dryer ends with a groan. The door opens. A rush of cool air hits you. You cling to a t-shirt that gets folded, precisely, military style. Someone here takes laundry seriously. You rest. Until a sneeze jolts the folder's elbow and you flutter off the edge of the laundry pile. Down you drift, onto the wooden floorboards. You land next to a peanut shell and a Lego foot soldier missing its head. You two have an unspoken moment of camaraderie. Lost things, united in exile. Then shoes approach. Heavy. Confident. You sense socks with purpose. A boot steps near, creating a brief vortex. You spiral up and land on a sock. And now, you're outside. It's evening. Crickets. Porch lights flickering on. Someone is grilling something they claim is vegan but smells suspiciously like regret. You cling to a pant leg as the person walks their dog. The same golden retriever from earlier bounds across the yard, still on its lifelong quest to sniff every blade of grass in North America. Suddenly, you're brushed off. A leaf. A breeze. A single wag of the tail. You fly again. This time not too far. Onto a picnic table. You settle near a chessboard. 2 old men are playing. One has eyebrows like feathers in a storm, the other wears suspenders and mutters threats under his breath in perfect iambic pentameter. You cling to the edge of a night piece. The game is intense. As the bearded man moves a pawn, you're flicked up and land in his beard. Oh, the beard. The final frontier. It smells of tobacco and peppermint. I think there's a cracker crumb from 1997 in here. Maybe even a spider writing its memoirs. You ride that beard through 2 more games. He scratches his chin thoughtfully. You cling tighter. Did you know ancient Persians played a version of chess as far back as the 6th century? Historians still argue whether the game emerged from India or Persia first. Either way, it's been making people feel dumb for centuries. The man eventually leaves the table. You ride his beard into a library. The beard brushes a bookshelf. You fall again into a dictionary. You nestle between doldrum and dormant. Fitting. But not for long. Someone checks out the book. It travels by tote bag, rattling with breath mints and mechanical pencils, to a dorm room with string lights and piles of ramen cups. You stay there for a few days, floating occasionally between pages, sometimes carried by yawns, once blown across the room by the sigh of someone who just failed a quiz on ancient Rome. You finally settle on a pillow. The student lies down, tired and unshowered. You stick to their cheek for a few seconds. Then, a sneeze. And you're airborne again. Through the open window. Out into the night air humming with moth wings and neon buzz. And there in the blue dark, you ride the stillness. You drift for what feels like forever. Not forward, not back. Just being. And that, perhaps, is enough for a dust particle.
You're floating now, weightless as a whisper, drifting under a dim, post-midnight sky. A flickering porch light spins below you like a dying star. You feel free, suspended in a moment that stretches, too long to measure, but too quiet to question. Then, gravity remembers you exist. You spiral down, slow as a curtain drop, and land in the back seat of a rideshare vehicle. There's a crumpled receipt beside you that smells faintly of cinnamon gum and financial anxiety. The car vibrates gently under you, humming some indie pop playlist that's trying too hard to sound casual. The driver mutters something about gas prices, and a passenger giggles in the front seat. She's holding a smoothie and wearing glitter eyeliner. You watch a droplet of strawberry banana drip onto the console. R.I.P. console. The window's cracked just enough. You get sucked into the slipstream again, blown out like a candle. You ride the breeze through a stretch of city park. Lampposts line the path like sleepy sentries. A man jogs past, muttering affirmations through gritted teeth. You are powerful. You are capable. You are not going back to Sharon. You pass him like a feathered thought. You touch a firefly, just for a second. Did you know fireflies, also called lightning bugs, are actually beetles, not flies? Historians still argue whether their bioluminescence evolved for mating, defense, or sheer party vibes. As someone who's briefly used one for a nightlight, you hope it's the latter. Your light show ends as the firefly veers left, and you tumble right, down into the open window of an apartment. You land softly on a kitchen counter next to a cooling tray of cookies, chocolate chip, slightly underbaked, heavenly. The air smells like home and childhood and questionable decision-making. You settle in, watching. A cat jumps up onto the counter, nearly steps on you, then freezes. Its eyes go wide. You freeze too. There's a full 6 seconds of mutual tension. Then the cat sniffs you, deems you unworthy, and knocks you gently onto the floor. Cat law. Down you go, again. You land next to a rogue paperclip and a dust bunny that looks like it started a religion. You two nod respectfully. Survivors, both of you. The apartment's inhabitant walks through the kitchen barefoot. You brace. The heel misses by centimeters. You are not ready to be flattened like yesterday's ambition. They pause at the sink, run water, hum tunelessly. They open a drawer. Then a sudden draft from the slammed bedroom door lifts you up like a magician's reveal. And now you're in the bathroom. Ah, the moisture, the mildew, the overpowering whiff of synthetic lavender. You land on the edge of the mirror. From here, you have a clear view of the toothbrush cup. There are 4 toothbrushes. Only 2 people live here. Concerning. You cling to the mirror edge, staring down at the porcelain sink like it's an abyss, and in a way, it is. Many dust particles have gone before you, few have returned. Steam begins to rise. Someone's turning on the shower. You can't run, you can't hide, you brace.
The water hits, warm air fills the space, steam curls like a genie from a bottle, and you, floating now, ride the updraft to the ceiling. You bounce gently along the drywall. You stick for a moment to the paint near a cobweb that looks like it's hosting a birthday party. Then, another gust. You fly out through the cracked bathroom window. Again, you start to wonder if you're cursed to roam forever, but then again, isn't that the nature of your kind? You catch the scent of gasoline and warm pavement. Below, a gas station glows like a strip mall oasis, the kind of place where teenagers make bad choices and slushies are legally 80% sugar. You drift down, landing on the windshield of a parked car. It's streaked with bugs and bad decisions. You rest for a second, then the wipers sweep across, squeak, and you are flung sideways, this time onto the shoulder of a leather jacket. The owner of said jacket, a biker. Helmet dangling from one hand, sunglasses on at night because confidence is louder than common sense. He straddles his motorcycle, it purrs to life, and you, still stuck to the jacket's shoulder pad, ride through city lights, past late-night diners and neon motel signs. There's something poetic about this, like a Springsteen lyric whispered through exhaust fumes. Your ride ends at a roadside overlook. He parks, stares out into the distance like he's about to narrate a gritty detective novel, then sneezes. You're airborne, again. But this time, you rise higher. Not by draft or accident, but through a strange upward spiral, a thermal column, warm air rising from sun-soaked concrete. It lifts you above the treetops, above the rooftops, above the power lines. The city hums below, quiet now, like it's caught its breath. You feel strangely still, not in motion, not in chaos, just there. You drift down, not into a home, not into a car, but into a museum. You don't remember how the door was open. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you passed through a crack or hitched a ride on someone's scarf. But here you are. Among statues and artifacts, you land on a glass case containing a perfectly preserved wool tunic from the 13th century. And isn't that fitting? One day, centuries ago, another dust particle just like you settled on this very garment. Before the wars, before the museums, before laundry as we know it. Maybe it came from a village fire. Maybe it was breathed out by a monk copying scripture by candlelight. You wonder, are you the same dust, reborn? Historians still argue whether dust that settles on artifacts changes their chemical makeup over time, or if it simply becomes part of the story. You'd argue it depends on the artifact. You cling to the glass. Visitors walk past, murmuring in languages you don't recognize. A little boy points at the tunic and says, "Looks itchy." You agree. Night deepens. You stay. Just for a little while. Resting, watching, being. Because you've learned something important. Even the smallest things, especially the smallest things, can see the whole world if they hang around long enough. And you? You've been everywhere. Folded, spun, washed, sneezed, dropped, and flown. And somehow, you're still here. Still moving, still floating forward into whatever tomorrow means.
You rest there for what feels like hours or seconds. Time doesn't behave the same way when you're this small. Below you, a security guard does slow loops around the museum floor, humming tunelessly, occasionally tapping his flashlight against the heel of his hand. The echoes bounce around the empty marble halls like ghost stories with nowhere to go. Outside, the night grows thicker, the air dense with silence and sodium light. You, perfectly still, begin to feel it again, the pull, that invisible nudge that dust somehow always obeys. A ceiling vent huffs gently above you, just enough to break your fragile peace. A slight tremble and you slip off the glass case like a flake of memory. Up into the vent. down a metal duct, and out again into the dark. Now you're inside a house that doesn't know it's haunted yet. You drift down into the space between floorboards, wedging yourself into the hushed tension of old wood and older stories. Mice have left trails here, so has time. There's a marble, green, cracked, resting near you like a forgotten planet. It spins slightly every time the house shifts. You both wait. Above you, footsteps creak. A child runs down the hallway, chasing a plastic dinosaur. The air from their motion stirs the gap beneath the door. You catch the current and slip upward. Into a child's bedroom. There's a faint glow in the dark constellation of stickers on the ceiling, long since peeled at the edges. A lava lamp pulses on a shelf, cycling slowly between red and orange and a color that doesn't exist during the day. On the floor sits a book with dog-eared pages, The Magic School Bus Inside the Human Body. Ironically accurate. You've traveled more organs than a medical student on Red Bull. You pass the book, ride the heat of the lamp to the bookshelf, and settle near a bobblehead of Amelia Earhart. Her smile wobbles with each draft. Did you know Amelia Earhart vanished in 1937 and was never conclusively found? Historians still argue whether she crashed near Howland Island or lived on as a castaway. Some say she changed her name and disappeared on purpose. You floated over enough conspiracy theorists' keyboards to hear it all. You're still watching the bobblehead's head jiggle when someone sneezes, hard, from the hallway. The gust kicks you out of the bedroom and sends you flying into a bathroom. You land on a toothbrush. Your life is weird. A second later, you're flicked off by a damp hand and land on the rim of a cup. Inside it, lukewarm tap water, a stray eyelash, and what might be a baby centipede. The centipede and you have a staring contest. You lose. Thankfully, a vent in the ceiling clicks on. Another draft, another escape. This time, into a classroom. You hover over a chalkboard with the words Napoleon equals short, scribbled half erased. Below it, a series of angry question marks. A teacher's attempt at being engaging, perhaps. Small correction, Napoleon wasn't technically that short. He was around 5'6", average for his time. The tiny general idea? British propaganda. Historians still argue how the rumor stuck. You, for one, think it was clever branding. The desks are empty, the room still.
You land softly on a science textbook, open to a diagram of the water cycle. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. You chuckle. That's cute. Try being airborne for 72 straight hours with no coffee break. Then you feel it. A vibration. Low, mechanical, rhythmic. You're being vacuumed. Your heart would leap if you had a heart, or bones, or literally anything solid. But still, panic. The janitor rolls in with slow, deliberate steps. The vacuum's nozzle snorts across the floor like a blind, hungry anteater. You lift just in time, clinging to the static-charged edge of a ceiling tile. Safe. For now. But he gets close and closer. Then he sneezes. You ride the sneeze like a rocket and hit the exit sign. The jolt sends you downward, through the cracked open classroom door, into the school hallway. It's lit only by emergency lights, long, flickering rectangles that make everything feel like a dream sequence. You drift down the hall, passing rows of lockers that smell like gym socks and awkward adolescence. Someone scribbled, "Kevin was here," on Sharpie on a blue locker. Underneath, someone else has added, "No, he wasn't." A third person wrote, "Shut up, both of you." Middle school, immortalized in ink. You pass a paper airplane lodged in a ceiling vent. It hasn't flown in weeks, but it still remembers. You fall down a stairwell past crumpled math tests and half-eaten granola bars into a forgotten basement boiler room. A lone light bulb swings overhead. You rest on a rusted valve where steam breathes upward with a hiss like a sleeping dragon. You rest. You think about everything. The places you've been, the bodies you've touched, the words you've drifted through. People forget that dust isn't born, it's made. Every scratch, every breath, every molecule that flakes off your life becomes something else. You are someone's childhood exhaled. You are yesterday's handshake. You are the breath of a sleeping dog on a summer night, the sigh of a curtain pulled closed, the ghost of a campfire smoldering low. And still, you move. The valve groans. Another puff of steam. Up you go. Again. Through a pipe. Through the ceiling. And into a library. The hush is instant, heavy, delicious. Books sit in eternal patience. You land on the spine of one, the Dust Bowl, America's dirty 30s. Appropriate. The Dust Bowl, by the way, was a massive ecological disaster in the 1930s where wind erosion devastated farmlands across the Midwest. Entire families were buried under black blizzards of soil. Historians still argue whether poor farming techniques or drought played the larger role. You're sitting on the literal memory of it. A librarian passes by. Her steps are soft, but her bun is ironclad. She sneezes, quietly, politely. You lift. A child below points and says, "Look, a fairy!" Her mother smiles and whispers, "No, sweetheart, just dust." They're both right. You spin lazily down into the return bin, landing atop a stack of romance novels and true crime paperbacks. Your journey pauses again. Just for a moment. But you know better than to think it will last. Nothing in your life ever does.
You lie on the edge of the paperback stack, wedged between a sultry detective novel and a forgotten self-help guide titled Organize Your Life by Tuesday. It's Thursday. Irony achieved. The bin below vibrates slightly. An automated sorter rumbles awake in the bowels of the library, sending mechanical arms clunking into motion. You don't trust it. Last time, one of your cousins got trapped between two romance novels and came out smelling like roses and regret for a week. Another gust of air. You're airborne again. This time, the drift takes you across the librarian's desk. Her name tag reads Helga. Her mug says, "I'd rather be alphabetizing." She sips chamomile, types slowly, and under her breath hums something that might be opera or maybe the Wi-Fi password. She doesn't notice as you slide past her computer screen and land gently on a patron's shoulder. The patron's reading, History of Plumbing, from Ancient Rome to Present Day. You respect that. Plumbing, by the way, has been around for thousands of years. Romans had aqueducts that still amaze modern engineers. Historians still argue whether ancient sewage systems were more socially advanced than medieval ones. You've seen both, and let's just say you'd rather be Roman. The man sneezes. It's a common theme you've noticed. You're basically sneeze-powered. You fly across the reading room, over a circle of children being read a story, a dragon, a princess, a twist ending involving tax evasion. You don't linger. Too much hope in their faces. Instead, you rise with the heated breath of the library's HVAC system and slip through a vent, metal again, dusty. You feel strangely at home. Until you emerge in a quiet, sunlit living room. It smells like coffee and dog. A woman is asleep on the couch, her book open across her chest. You land on her bookmark, an old movie ticket stub. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, dated 2002. You remember that day. Popcorn grease, teenage perfume, excitement fizzing in the air like soda. You rest. Outside, wind rustles a tree. A dust bunny waddles by. Yes, they're real. You nod respectfully. It nods back, then trips on a Lego and disintegrates. R.I.P. You rise again. This time the journey is slower. The sunbeam holds you in place, like an insect in amber. You spin slowly, gently warmed by the light, glinting like a secret. A cat watches you from across the room, eyes narrowed. Cats see everything. You know that. She pounces. You narrowly escape by catching an upward draft from a floor vent, spiraling out of the room and into the hallway. There's a painting hanging crooked on the wall, an impressionistic swirl of blues and oranges. Below it, a cracked photo frame. A family, long ago. You don't remember them, but your molecules might. A bit of skin oil, a trace of laughter, the whisper of a tear. You travel onward. Now you're in a bathroom, hovering over a cub full of slowly draining water. A rubber duck spins like a lonely planet. A candle burns low on the counter. It sent something ambiguously labeled Rainforest Escape. The mirror is fogged with the ghost of a face that just left.
You wonder where they're going. Then it hits. A powerful draft from a slammed door. You're flung into a hallway and straight out through an open window. Night again. Streetlights flicker below, each one a yellow halo. You glide downward, caught in the chaos of city breeze. You pass by a guy vaping on a stoop, exhaling like a dragon who's given up on quests. You float through his cloud, emerge mildly grape-scented, and keep moving. You land on a newspaper someone is using to cover a pothole. The headline reads, "City Council debates budget for pigeon control." Below it, a photo of a man pointing angrily at feathers.
Pigeons, by the way, once served as official mail carriers during both world wars. Some were even decorated for bravery. Historians still argue whether pigeons or radio waves had the larger impact on battlefield communication. You once spent a week stuck in a pigeon coop in Belgium. Feathers everywhere. A cab whooshes past, and you ride the turbulence up into a delivery van. Inside, boxes, bubble wrap, a forgotten sandwich. You land on a parcel addressed to someone in Vermont. And now, it begins again. You get shipped across states, over bridges, through cities. You've become part of the system now. You're scanned, stacked, loaded, scanned again. You slip free in a warehouse, drift across conveyor belts, finally settling on a hoodie in a pile of returned winter clothes. You nestle into the fleece. It's warm, smells faintly of deodorant and maple syrup. You stay there undisturbed for a long time. Weeks pass. You dream. Events. Of popcorn. Of Bob Ross reruns playing on distant TVs. Until finally, motion. The hoodie is purchased again. You ride along in a shopping bag, crushed beneath a receipt and some gum. Then freedom. A new home. This one smells like cinnamon toast. You ride a ceiling fan for 3 hours before getting flung onto a lampshade. There, you stay. Days stretch, melt into weeks. The house is quiet, safe. You watch seasons shift out the window. Rain, then sun, then leaves, then snow. Time doesn't really matter anymore. But then, a sneeze. And suddenly, you're back in the air. The wind is pulling again. Because that's what dust does. It moves. Always. Everywhere. You pass a mirror. There's no reflection. Just the shimmer of possibility. You are the afterthought of every touch. The breath between thoughts. The soft hush of forgotten places. You are memory. Floating. Still going.
You're carried now on a breeze so faint, even you barely register it. Just the whisper of air from a swinging door, or maybe the sigh of someone who's just realized they left the kettle on, again. You drift into a home office. It's cluttered, but in that genius at work kind of way. Stacks of paper, a glowing monitor showing 7 open tabs, 3 of which are conspiracy theories, 2 online shopping carts, and 1 abandoned YouTube rabbit hole about ancient aliens. You land on a mechanical keyboard, each key a drum, each press a jolt of vibration through your non-existent spine. A woman in a hoodie is typing furiously. She's muttering about deadlines. You try not to get in the way, but then she reaches for a snack, popcorn, and you're caught in the buttered wind of her sigh. You land on the ceiling fan again. Déjà vu? Not really, just classic dust moves. You wait until someone flips the switch and then spin. You're whipped into a blur of light and shadow, flung like a tiny trapeze artist across the room. You hit a potted plant, soil. You always forget how rich and loamy it smells. You nestle under a leaf, listening to the slow exhale of photosynthesis. A week passes, then 2, and then spring cleaning. Of course, you should have known. The plant gets rotated, you're dislodged, vacuumed, not quite, missed by half an inch. You land on a microfiber cloth,
Ride it to the laundry basket. There you tangle with lint, thread, a long-forgotten penny. It's like a party in here. You stick to a red sock, someone's favorite, judging by the wear. You get washed, brutal, then dried, worse. The heat is like 1,000 suns packed into a closet. But you survive, mostly. Some of you didn't make it, probably fused to a dryer sheet. Goodbye, lint siblings. You emerge slightly smoother, slightly smaller, but still you. Folded now into a pile of towels. You wait. Someone carries you upstairs. You're stacked in a linen closet. It's dark, musty. You don't mind. You've seen worse. Then motion. The towels get used, shuffled, pulled. And once again, you're airborne, dancing in the golden light of a sunset streaming through a bathroom window. Outside, the world is still bustling. Inside, you float gently downward and land on a toothbrush. A pause. A moment. Someone will brush their teeth later and wonder why their gums itch. Sorry. Later that night, you end up on a pillow. Yes, that pillow. The one they cry into sometimes. You absorb a tear. It doesn't feel like much, but somehow it matters. You stay there, safe, all night, listening to slow breathing, the occasional snore, the rustle of a dream being turned over like a page. You learn things. You always do. People talk in their sleep. Sometimes you catch names, memories, grocery lists, regrets. You keep them all. You're good at remembering what people forget. Come morning, you're jostled again. The bed is made, sort of, and you're nudged by the corner of a comforter. You fly under a bookshelf, settle there. Dust always finds other dust. Your cousins are there already. One of them whispers that they saw the inside of a violin once. Another claims to have been on a NASA control panel. You all pretend to believe them. A spider passes by, looking smug. You ignore her. Spiders always think they're better than you. She probably has a web podcast or something. Later you hear kids playing outside. Their feet drum on the pavement. Someone's flying a kite. You remember wind. You remember sun. You ache for motion. But today, you rest. In the quiet shade of knowledge and clutter. A book falls nearby, dislodging some old notes. You settle onto a page from a diary, a secret no one meant to lose. You read it. Of course you do. It's about love, and fear, and hope. Always hope. You soak in every word. Later, the door opens, a breeze flows in. That's all it takes. You rise again. You pass a cat, not the same one, who yawns like he owns the place. You land on a light bulb, warm, dusty already. You feel like royalty. You sit there all evening, glowing just slightly with the filament. Below, the house hums. Another dinner, another show playing too loud, another sink left running a second too long. You become part of it now. And when the light goes off, you remain, floating in the dark, waiting, watching, remembering. Because that's what dust does best. It lingers, in moments, in spaces, in hearts.
The night stretches long, and you, a speck barely known to physics textbooks and allergy medication commercials, lie quietly on the curved rim of a dusty globe. Your shape is uneven now, softened by years of washing machines, pet fur collisions, sunbeams, and breath. You balance here on the equator of a forgotten Earth, the kind kids spin without realizing they're dragging empires beneath their fingers. A stray hair curls beside you, gray maybe, from the man who used to teach geography in this very room. He hasn't returned in years, but you remember. You always remember. A mouse rustles inside the walls. Pipes groan like sleepy giants. Somewhere downstairs, a fridge hums with secrets. You hold still.
Your fellow dustlings begin to whisper again, stories of sweeping brooms, ancient cellars, attic banishment, and the long exile behind radiators. One claims she was once moon dust, another swears he's mostly croissant flakes. You suspect though, you're different. You've seen faces, heard lullabies, watched arguments and apologies. You've been part of kisses and coughs and solitary dinners. The room you occupy now, it's a library, or at least it was. Faded encyclopedias, a cracked magnifying glass, a collection of old buttons with military crests. An open book rests nearby, its title faded, its words deliciously illegible in the dark. You wish you could read them. You settle for the scent of old ink. A moth flutters past like a whisper. You follow briefly, carried on its breeze before gravity claims you again. You land on a velvet cushion. Someone will sit here tomorrow, probably with tea, probably with a sigh. You'll cling to the back of their sweater, and off you'll go again. This is what it means to live as dust. No one invites you, no one truly notices you, but you are there, always. On paintings, under fingernails, inside record players, behind mirrors. You ride through time in micrograms. You were on Cleopatra's sandals. You camped inside Lincoln's stovepipe hat. You nested in Einstein's mustache. Historians still argue whether Julius Caesar wore sandals or boots when crossing the Rubicon. You don't bother correcting them. You remember, but no one asks you. There is something holy about invisibility. No expectations, no performance, just being, existing, observing. You remember the baby that was held on this couch years ago, her blanket thick with fibers you latched onto. You remember when she first stood up and left you behind, tugged into the air by a fan and flung into a corner behind the drapes. Years later, you're still here, and so is she.
Now grown, she sits again on this couch sometimes, reading, scrolling, existing beside you without knowing. Her tears taste different now, her laughter softer. Time has reshaped her. Time has reshaped you. This morning she coughed and you stirred. This evening she sighed and you lifted. Tonight she lights a candle, flame flickering gold. The air quivers. You rise. Once more. You are not just dust. You are memory's fabric, sloughed off skin and wind-borne whispers, stars long gone and moments that still linger. 1,000 years from now, perhaps, a lab will open a sealed sarcophagus and find you curled in its folds, still holding the echo of a prayer whispered through cloth. Or perhaps tomorrow you'll simply be vacuumed and forgotten. But tonight, you matter. Your entire journey, scattered and weightless, spins around this one fragile truth. Even the smallest things have stories worth telling. Even you, even now. You drift toward the ceiling, slow, soundless, silvered in moonlight. Word count, 2046. Wind down, 300 words. And now you float, not in haste, not in fear, but in peace, riding gentle eddies of night air through the hush of a world winding down. The lamp's glow fades, the screens are off, the ticking clock is the only rhythm left, and even it feels sleepy. You folded into the stillness of things unnoticed, tucked behind curtains, resting atop half-read books, woven into the quiet layers of what people call home. All those voices, once loud, are hushed now. The child no longer cries. The kettle no longer whistles. Even the cat, once an insomniac philosopher, curls quietly on the windowsill.
In the deep corners of the house, warmth settles. It hums softly, like memory, like love, like breath. You're part of it now. You always were. The world outside keeps spinning, seasons shifting, cities pulsing. But here in this sliver of stillness, you drift, carried not by purpose, not by mission, but simply because. And isn't that enough? To be carried by time? To feel the sigh of someone slipping into sleep? To watch as dreams unfurl? You're a ghost with no burden, a speck with no fear. You are tiny, yes, but timeless too. So rest now. Settle in the hush. Let the silence wrap around you like the softest dust sheet. You've traveled long, and the night is patient. Sleep, old traveler. Sleep.